Start our recording, and this is Thursday, January 7th, 2021, finally. And it's just right straight up at 3 o'clock. Tori, I'm going to turn off your webcam.
Yep.
So we'll just have it set up like this, try to focus everybody on what we're doing. And this is the January 2021 ArcGIS workshop. The focus of this workshop this month is web maps, how to create a web map. And I'm going to try and do it a couple different ways. It really is really simple right now, almost too simple. But I want to go over some of the things you want to think about when you are producing a web map. So let's start with some simple terminology. All right, let me go in here and go to ArcGIS Online so we can talk about this. So what is a web map? What is a feature service? Sorry, let me go and take my password. I'm going to cheat. This is a virtual machine in which I'm running, so just want to make sure. All right, so if I look on ArcGIS Online in our content, you'll see a whole bunch of things in here. So let's just go to let's go here. All right, let's go to this folder here. This is a folder for a specific county for which we do work, and you'll see on here what looks like a bunch of different things. And so the question is, what are all of these things out here? And it turns out that it's fairly easy if we use, for example, ArcGIS Pro or ArcGIS Map, ArcMap sort of metaphors for what these things are. So let's start with a feature layer. A feature layer, all right, this is a data source that's being placed up in the cloud. And in this case, this is hosted. It could be local on your portal, but this is hosted. And this is the actual data layer, all right? However, right below it is this thing called a service definition. And this goes along with that feature layer. And this service definition can be thought of as sort of a layer file. It helps the web understand what this thing is, how it works, what to show on here, all of those sorts of things. And you can see I have a feature layer for web parcels. I have another feature layer for lots inside of here, and that also has a service definition. I have a feature layer for subdivisions with a service definition on here. But then, so I have these feature layers, and they have service definitions which describe, you know, what attribute fields are, how it's supposed to be represented, that sort of thing. But the web map itself, that web map is actually comparable to a map document in ArcMap. So this is a collection of feature layers and service definitions on there in which you configure how that data is presented, how it looks, is there labeling on here, is there editing on here, those sorts of things. So a web map in and of itself, again, comparable to a map document inside of ArcMap or comparable to a map view inside of ArcGIS Pro. Those are the components that's brought on. And then finally, I go down here a little bit further and I see a web mapping application. An application is comparable to ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro. This is actually a collection of HTML code that actually goes and takes that map, that web map, and provides some functionality for it so that you can do things such as you can query it, you can filter it, you can turn layers on and off inside of here, you can label things, those sorts of things. So the application is comparable to ArcMap. The web map is comparable to the map document. The feature service is comparable to the data layer, and the service definition is kind of not 100% like, but it's kind of comparable to a layer file. It sort of tells the software how to go and manage it. All right. So with that, we have a couple of ways to go through and configure this. For example, let's go back here again. Sorry. Let's go back to this web map, and I can go in here and let's open it up on another tab here. All right, and let's open it up in a web map in the normal map viewer. And you'll see that what this is, once this loads up, is this is a base map. And then this is a series of feature services that are on here. And these feature services, they have things such as what's the symbology on there? Do we have attribute tables? Is there a filter? And if I click on here, where is it located in my table of contents? Does it have pop-ups available to me? How do I manage my labels on here? So if I click on something, this is a pop-up, and I can configure this. And you can actually configure all of this up through a browser using all of these little configurations. But you can also configure it on ArcGIS Pro. That's one reason why I said early on, it's actually so easy to do this now, you might want to consider doing this in Pro itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it the nice and easy way. As Tina Turner says, sometimes you don't do it nice and easy. Sometimes you do it nice and rough. Let's at least get through the easy part, and then we'll see what we want to do. So we want to think about what layer are we going to have on here? What is our base map going to be? We're configuring a web map for this. What's our base map going to be? Are we going to do labels? Are we going to have pop-ups? What's the symbology on this? We want to think about all of these things because we are going to create that web map up on, in this case, is going to be hosted up on ArcGIS Online, and we're going to go and be able to go and view it. And we want to recognize that there's some things that we can put up there and some things we can't put up there. Some things that we configure here that will work exactly the same up there, other things that will not work exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here with a parcel polygon feature class. And if I look at the attribute table for that, you can see there's a lot of attributes in here. There are some attributes that I really don't care about. There are some attributes that are real important for me. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go and configure my attribute table. What is it that I want to see and how am I going to see it? I'm going to do that by utilizing the data designer that's built into ArcGIS Pro. So if I right click on a layer inside of ArcGIS Pro and go to design, it gives me now the ability to go in and use my data designer. And I could do things like set up domains, but I'm going to just focus on fields right now. I'm going to open this up and it will open up a dialog box and show me everything I need to know about these elements here. And rather than go through and check these all at once and such, I'm going to just click on this button up on top here and say, let's turn them all off. Let's only put on what's important. So the shape field, obviously, I have to bring that up there. The object ID, I have to have one object ID. I think this is actually the one I'm looking for. And I can set an alias for this. I'll just call it system ID on there. So I have one object ID, which is, again, the system identifier. I have my shape field, and then I go through which of these parcels or which of these attributes do I really want to keep. And I'm going to keep, if I go back here and open up my attribute table again, let's look at what these things are. This strip is obviously, this is the parcel identification. If I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what the global ID is on here. So let's go in here again and let's turn this one on, make that one visible. We don't know what that is. I think I'm going to get an error if I leave this unchecked, but I'm going to do that anyway. I'd rather make a mistake. Here, old parcel ID, the volume, yes, put a couple things in here. Some land values in here. I'll turn these things on. Whether or not its address is maybe section, township, and range in which it's located, and then put the other two properties of my parcel. When I'm done with that, when I'm done configuring it, and I'm not done configuring it yet, but when I'm done configuring it, if there are no edits pending, I can go ahead and click save and it will set that. If there are any edits pending, it will not allow me to go and save it. For example, if I go in here and I just do a create for a polygon, all right, I create a polygon and I don't save it. If you'll note, this won't let me save because I've got an edit that is pending and it's not saved yet. So that's one of the common things that people almost always do is, and 2.7 is actually starting to tell you this. It says the save button is currently disabled due to unsaved edits in one or more maps. So let's go in here. Let's just go ahead and cancel that. Let me go in here to edit and delete it. Let's save that. And now we go back here and we have save available to us. All right, so I've turned the layers on that I want, but there's other things that I should be setting. For example, as I go across here, is it read only? Is this going to be editable? What's the original field name? What's the alias in here? And you saw that I put an alias in here for my object ID. I can put aliases in for these other ones. I'm going to leave them like this. You know, maybe I go and make this, that's the display number in here. Well, maybe let's make that volume and page, make it a little bit more useful for people. Short description. All right, that's good enough just to show you that that's what that is. The next column shows us what type of data it is. All right, whether it's a text string or whether it's a number field and what type of number field it might be. In this case, these are all double word numbers, and there's either a date field or text fields. We're not changing any of that. Whether or not it allows null values, meaning no information stored there, we're not doing anything with that. Highlighting. Is this going to be highlighted? So let's go in here and highlight or our identifier field. Let's go down here and then let's highlight this one also and the acreage also. The old parcel, let's go and highlight these to see what they look like. And the reason for highlighting, and I'm going to save this right now and go in here and just sort of show you what this looks like. Reason for highlighting is the ability to go and see them quickly, both when you do an identify or a select, it shows up like this inside of the display box, the dialog box that pops up, or the pane. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll take these fields that are just sort of supplemental fields, the object ID field and the shape field, we'll take and we'll move them to the bottom or somewhere on the outside. So now when we do a save and do an attribute, you'll note they're all here. And those other fields that we really don't want to pay attention to, they're actually back here on here. So part of this is configuration to make it more efficient for what you're doing. And part of it's just sort of finding a new way to go and put this together and make it available to you. Now, I can tell you that this is really only configuring what gets displayed in your project file or in your web map. So it doesn't really change the data. It only changes the way you display the data. All right. So let's go back up here a little bit more and do a little bit more configuration. So we have here a field called Acres GIS. All right, and it's a numeric field. So one of the things we want to do again is we want to look at this and see how is it going to be represented. And I'm going to go back again here to this and look at Acres GIS, and I can see it is in fact 6 decimal places here. Way too much. Nothing should be, no, acres especially should not be represented that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this number field here, and when I do that, I get this ellipse here, these 3 dots. That allows me to format that number field. And I can format it and it can say, this is like Excel. It allows me to go and set the configuration for how that's going to be displayed. And it can be displayed as a number or a percentage, currency. A rate is where it's divided by something else. Maybe it's square footage and we want it to go and appear as acreage. We could tell it to divide it by 43,560, or as a fraction, scientific, or maybe it's a direction, a bearing, or an azimuth of something. Maybe it's an angle in which you can go and have it represent degrees, minutes, and seconds, those sorts of things. In this case, I'm going to keep this as a number. It's a number. It is storing the number of acres for this one polygon. But I'm going to change it from 6 decimal places to 2 decimal places. It does not change the data. It only changes how it's presented back to you. That's all. Doesn't change the data. Then I'm going to go down. I don't care about the alignment. I still want it to keep it aligned right. But I'm going to tell it if it's more than 999, put a 1,000 separator in it, and then pad it with zeros. And then I can tell it to put a suffix on it, in which case I can tell it that if these are all acreage, to put an AC suffix on there, and I can hit apply. It says in green over here, okay, let's go ahead and save this. When I open this up in the attribute table now, I will see that all of my acreage is now 2 decimal places, and it has a suffix on it of AC. So I've gone through and I've turned layers on. I've changed the order of those layers as far as what they're being displayed. I've gone and highlighted those layers. I've also gone and changed the formatting of some of the number fields so it represents more closely what I think that should be representing on here. I'm also going to highlight this short description here, and I think I'm going to take these others and turn them off. All right, so all these other values in here, I'm going to turn them off. Section, township, and range I'll leave on. These are the shape areas here. I'm going to highlight that short description field. And you know that area that was being in here? That actually is square footage on here. Let's take that down to 2. Thousands padded with zeros. And again, I can tell it, and we'll make it square feet if you want, but I'm going to go and do that as a rate. And I'm going to say, rather than showing me the square footage of this, actually calculate this out. And calculate it out by dividing it by 43,560, which is the number of square foot in an acre. All right, and 2 decimal places here. There we go. So it will now show that. And this is, let's call this GIS. Well, that's actually what that other one was called, wasn't it? Acres. Let's call this calc acres. All right, and put that in as the suffix. All right, one more time. I'm going to go in here. This is here. If I look, oh, it now says calc acres on here. It's gone and taken the square footage, divided it by 43,560, and shortened it to 2 decimal places. And now it's going to go and reflect that back to me. So I can compare the two between here and there. In this case, it's probably going to be equal to the same, but just want to sort of show you how you can do something like that. All right. Designer. Really useful tool to go and help you to represent what's that data the way you want it to be represented. Aliases, highlighting, changing the order on it. I can tell you this, that if you really get into this, right now I am actually looking at the current layer that I'm working on, but I actually, using this tool, I could get in there and actually edit the data source, meaning I could delete a record, or excuse me, I could delete an attribute field, or I could insert a new attribute field on here. This allows you to actually go in and tell it whether or not you want to work on how the data is represented or what the actual data has on there. Before John, the guy, asked me the question, I'm going to tell him, no, you can't do this on an SDE shared version data set. Can't do it, John, sorry. You have to have those rights, but you can't do it. All right, we're good with that. So let's look now at symbology and what we're going to do with symbology. In this case, again, this is going to be a web map. And for the web map, because I'm going to have an aerial or some sort of base map underneath it, I'm probably not going to do full symbols like this. Or if I do, you know, I might go in and really make it almost translucent. Just put a tint of a color up there. So how do I change that? I can go here again. As I click on a layer in my table of contents, I suddenly have this feature layer adjustments. I can do the appearance, the labeling, and oh, by the way, this is exactly the same thing I just went through. Was changing the fields in here, adding subtypes, domains, rules, and things like that. I don't need to do that. So I'm going to go to appearance. In this case, I can take this and say, well, let's make it 70% as far as my transparency on my layer. Let's go and add. Let's go back to our map and add a base map here. Or let's just do imagery and labels on here. And you'll see this is primarily just an aerial image file, and it's got some layers on here. I'm not quite sure that having the polygons actually symbolized is helpful to me. So maybe what I'll do is I might change my base map to a street base map, and then change this layer instead to, let's take it back to 0%, and let's change the symbology on that and make it hollow and just an outline instead. So let's click over here on the symbology until we just want it to be an outline of the polygon. And if we click on properties here, we get to say, okay, what color do we want this outline to be? Let's make it red. Let's make it ugly. All right. So we just have that. Again, we are designing what our overall web map is going to look like and how it's going to appear when we go and put it up on ArcGIS Online. I guess I could have chosen a more exciting data set, but I didn't. Yeah, it looks like they don't even have the buildings on here. Let's go back to aerials at least. Yep. So on the aerials, just to remind everybody, I actually can go in here and tell it to go in and make the aerials somewhat translucent. And as I tab off of that, it will reset that. So I'm resetting that a little bit. Okay, I can live with that. That will work out like this. All right. My next thing is, all right, do I want to have pop-ups appear? And a pop-up is when you go and click on this, what shows up here when we go and do an identify on it. Okay. And in this case, it shows up both the parcel and the world imagery on here. Let's make this and disable the pop-up on our imagery. So then we click on this, it just pops up the parcel itself. All right, this will work. But let's talk about configuring this. Maybe we want to go in and make it so it says something else, or that it's a little bit different order here. So if we go to our parcel and we right click, we can go down to configure pop-ups. Configuring pop-ups, this object ID is what appears at the very title when we go and do our pop-up here. That's the object ID. So maybe instead of object ID, we can go in here and edit this and say, well, let's not do that. Let's put instead this parcel ID. All right. So now when I click on this, it will give me, it's not giving me that. It should give me the title of this here. Oh, there it is there. There's the title on here. I'm going to change this to this one here. All right. There's my title for my pop-up on here. This is what's going to automatically pop up here. So this is nice. I like it. But what about all these other fields? Because right now it's showing me the other fields in here. I've got shape length. I have calculated areas. All right. So if I go in here and click on the fields, I can actually configure whether it only uses what's available or the data designer that I used, or I can uncheck this and do it for the other, or I can actually tell it to create a new field on the fly using something like Arcade. And I'm just going to show you a real simple one here. Let's create an expression, and we'll call this expression parcel ID and acreage. All right. And I think I actually have to have, let's see, I think I have to have, there we go. So I can actually tell it, all right, well, it's this value. And then I want to go and tell it to go and place a dash and then put this value in there. All right. And again, what I'm really showing you here is how you can add fields to the pop-up. And those fields are calculated by using Arcade on here. So I can go ahead and do this, go back here. When I click on this now, I will have this custom field, which is the parcel ID plus the acreage that's in here. Notice it did not do a couple things here. It did not round the acreage value. It did not put acreage after there. So I can calculate those on there. I can also go and tell it to put a new title on here. All right, save, go back here. If I do this again now, I will have all my standard ones, plus I will have the parcel ID and acreage, and have it go and automatically go and show that for me. Notice it rounded my acreage value to there. All right. I'm really surprised that I haven't had anything put in the chat window yet to ask me to go and do, well, Frank, what the heck was that? Or how do I go and do this? I'm surprised nobody's asked any questions on any of this yet. So let me stop here for a minute because I've gone through this really, really fast. Do we have any questions on this? Chris, is there anything?
Nothing.
Wow. 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 All right. So pop-ups are very, very interesting because, yet Jennifer is just saying that I'm that amazing. I blew everybody's mind. No, I think I just sort of lulled you into sort of a just sort of a numbness. All right. Oh, okay. So maybe let's put another chart in here and let's do a chart. All right. Now this chart, let's go and say that this chart is just a sample chart. All right. And let's make it a pie chart. And let's have the total value in living space and the total value here. Let's not even normalize these, and let's just see what this looks like. So when we
Frank,
click on, yes,
when you have a moment, Jose has a question.
yes,
He
Jose.
says, if you configure in GIS Pro before you export the layer to GIS Online, it is less that you have to configure on the web map, correct?
That's exactly right, Jose. That's the reason why I'm doing it like this. This is the easy way. If you want to do it a harder way, you go and just send your feature layers up there and you configure them using the web browser. Oh no, very, very difficult to do. So I would not suggest that at all, even though that's what we've been doing for a couple of years now. So the reason why I'm doing this in Pro is because the tools are more robust. It's more intuitive to do it and it's faster to see it. So configure your map inside of ArcGIS Pro before you publish it, and it will make it much easier once it actually gets up there and starts being displayed up there. Okay, so I'm not going to do a whole lot here on any of this. Normalize, that's fine on here. Let's go back here to here, and you can see, well, here's where maps are, and so you could put a chart in here fairly easy. So Kathy's asking, can you please give some examples? Kathy, can you expand that a little bit? Examples of what? What type of examples? Why configuring in ArcGIS Pro is better than configuring in WebMap? Yes, I will. Once I configure it and put it up there, I'll start tweaking it up there and show you the differences between setting it up here in Pro versus actually doing it up there in the web browser. All right, so I will do that. So just enough, I'm enough for with the pop-up. I've got a pop-up configured in here so that we kind of are comfortable with that. We know what we're going to do, why we're doing it this way. The next thing I want to do is I wanted to go and put a label on here so that when this pops up, it actually will have a label on here. I can go in here and go to label properties. All right, and it will tell me that I only have one class here. And right now, it will allow me to go in and say, okay, so what do you want your label to be? In this case, I'm just going to tell it, if I go and tell it this is a long string here that is on here. Let's go and turn on our labels here. And you can see this is a long string that may not mean much at all. So if I look at this, let's turn off our imagery for a minute. It almost looks like it is a couple characters in here. So what I'm going to do is just use a little bit more arcade and go and describe it and tell it, just get a couple of strings out of, or a couple characters out of that string and put those up. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So what I'm going to tell it to do now is go and start and pull out of the middle. So I'm using the mid function. Did I say there was 19? 16 characters over, 3 characters wide. All right, I'm going to check and verify that my expression is good. I'm going to tell it to apply and see what I've got. That's not what I wanted. So let's go in here and say, well, maybe it isn't. First of all, let's start with one assumption. The arcade counting of characters for the mid function, they don't start at 1. They start at 0. So we have to take and subtract the number from here. Instead of being 16 over, maybe I only want it to be 15 over. First one is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's go and take 6 characters from here. Let's go and see where that is. So this is the 15th with the 0 index. And this is now taking 6 characters over. Maybe we only need 4 characters over. Yeah, That's good enough. Again, I don't want to go and get into this whole big thing of how to do arcade and the label expressions. I just want to go and um, make sure that that's how we sort of remember how this works. So let me also go and show you that some of the things you can do in arcade on ArcGIS Pro, and tell you that it's a limitation on ArcGIS Online. So I'm not going to do it fully, but I can go and tell it that so I'm going to tell it that to use the text formatting.new line code to put this on a second line, and then to go and put the acreage that's in that one field up there. Let's check this out and make sure I spelt everything correctly and say apply. It's going to go and put that up there and apply it. Let's go ahead and round this again to 2 decimal places. Let's go ahead and apply that. Go and put it to 2 decimal places. Let's go and add some text, AC, and text. Check it and put it in there. So there's some of the things you can do with arcade on here. I'm going to tell you, don't bother doing this, because ArcGIS Online, the labeling expression, still doesn't use the text formatting on here. So you can't go down 2 lines. You can't go to the next line on here. All right. So a couple questions came up.
Do you
Jennifer
see
asks,
Jennifer's?
I do. Can you
Okay.
configure the order of the pop-up? Yes, you can. In ArcGIS Online, when I have multiple feature classes, I found sometimes my parcel pop-up pops up above my zoning parcel. That, the order in which it intersects the layers, it's an interesting question. I don't know. It would seem to me that it would go from the top down, but I've never really tested that. And then Alex says, even though you configured acreage number in fields, you have to do it again if you want to label it. Correct. The field definition is only for basically the attribute table, the attribute pane, and identify. That's where that configuration is useful. Anywhere else, I have to do it with formatting tags. All right, so in labels and calculations and things like that, I have to do those with formatting tags. That one configuration for the field is only for those functions that actually do an inquiry into that table. So yeah, that's a good question, Alex. I wish that you could do it one time and it would be everywhere, but it's not that way. You wind up having to do this a lot. All right, so for this demo, I'm just going to go and say, yeah, let's just make it simple with those numbers. Let's just make sure those numbers are there. All right, so I'm getting closer. I'm going to save this project. I have the base map in here. I have the imagery in here. Maybe I want to go and do a halo on here. So if I click on this and go here to symbol, I can go and tell it, put a halo on here, maybe put a white halo on here, tell it to apply. Yeah, I think it's a little bit much, but maybe I want to do something else. Now, this is interesting. I've never tried it. I'm going to try it right now. When I'm doing a halo, it looks like it's the standard color configuration. So maybe I can go in here and tell it to put some sort of transparency on this halo and apply that. Oh, it did. Okay. So I can go and tell it to actually put some sort of tweak on there. So it's not quite as bright as it was. before and apply that. All right. Yeah, that's good enough. Again, I just want to go and configure something in here. One of the things I want to be aware of is when I'm up in a web map, it's going to look at the display and saw how long that just took to display that. Well, maybe I want to set some sort of scale dependency on here so that this class itself, um, let me see where that actually is. Is that an appearance here? Where is that? I know it's up here on the labeling where I can set how far out. In this case, I'm at 9,000. So if I'm out above 5,000, it doesn't label it. If I'm inside, there it does label it. Okay, so let's use that then. This is a way to go and set some scale dependency on those labels.
Frank,
Yes.
Mark has a question in the chat. He says, from what I found in ArcGIS Online can only handle a small amount of cartographic control, label symbology, compared to ArcGIS Pro. Esri has some, but limited documentation. Is there any better documentation as far as what ArcGIS Online can handle?
No, Mark, you're exactly right in that Esri is and this is recorded. Esri is working diligently to make sure that there's full parity across all of these products. All right, so let's just say that what you can do in ArcGIS Pro, you can't always do the same thing in creating a web map out of your hosted on-premises portal, and you definitely can't do it out of ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online has probably got well, let's put the field apps have the most limited capabilities. And then ArcGIS Online has got more capability than the field apps, but they don't have as much capability as the on-premises web maps. And they definitely don't have as much capability as ArcGIS Pro. So they're trying to propagate this functionality all the way through, but because it's different source code and such, it's taking them a while to do that. So yes, you are right. They do not have it all the way fully configured. But there are some tweaks that you can do. Right now, because this is changing so quickly, there is no documentation on this. It's just and they're coming out with new tweaks and new code almost every every 6 weeks or so. So you just want to keep up and see what you can do. Like I said, my biggest thing is I wish that on ArcGIS Online, we had a little bit better control for where labels are placed and be able to do some more functionality on there, because there's a lot of line labeling that we want to do that we can't do it yet. So you're right, Mark. I think we just have to continue to push them and let them know this is important enough that you should pay attention here more so than paying attention in some other things. We just have to get their attention, that's all. And Mark, you're doing exactly the right thing in that going and putting this up on the ideas on GeoNet. That's perfect thing to do. And I try to go and vote all of your ideas up as much as possible. But thank you for that. All right. So I've now got this configured. I'm not going to configure any more. That's going to be good enough for this on here. Simple labels on here. So now literally I can go to share. The share is the tab which allows you to go and take what you've got here and put it out to other places. You can put it out to a web map. You can put it out to individual layer. You can go and you can create a map file, a layer file. You can print it out. You can export it out. There's a lot of things in here, but the share basically is taking what you've got and sending it out to other things. I'm going to go and create a web map from here. So you're going to click on here, and I'm just going to call this, in this case, it's using Web Map Demo, and these are required fields. Interestingly, even though everybody just goes and copies those values over, it's required. Select the configuration. In this case, I just want to copy it all. This is new in 2.7, in which you can tell whether it's just looking at a map or whether it's editable, whether or not you want editing enabled on there, whether or not it's just visualization. I'm just going to say, let's keep it at this. I can look to see, these are the folders that are up on my ArcGIS Online. In this case, I'm going to create a new one called Demo. And then who I want to go and share this with, I'm going to share this not just with my organization or individual groups inside my organization. I'll just share it with everybody. First thing I want to do is analyze this, and it will analyze and say, they've got different projections, and obviously I can't have different projections on here. And then on my web demo for this, the display field object ID must be visible. All right, so let me go back here to this one here, go to my design. It says object ID must be visible. Object ID must be visible. All right, maybe I should go and move that down. Object ID, let's move it down. All right, let's go and share, let it analyze this again. Different projection file for the maps projection. All right, so what does that mean? That means that right now, if I look at the properties of this frame, it was actually, you look at the coordinate system, this is actually Wisconsin. All right, and it was a state plane projection in NAT 83 Harn, when this is actually in source spatial reference. This is actually Web Mercator on here. You will find most of the Esri base maps are Web Mercator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and change this to Web Mercator. And let's see here. I'm doing an import there. Nah, I don't want to import it. I want to go and search Web Mercator. And I'll just make my frame Web Mercator, go back here and analyze this again. No errors. All right, so it was attempting to reproject that image to Wisconsin State Plane. I've told it, no, don't reproject the image to Wisconsin State Plane, reproject the data to Web Mercator on here. Okay, are we all good with this? Then what I can do now, again, here's my web map. Here's the configuration. What's going to be pushed up there. Here's my messages for my analysis. Let's go ahead and share this out. Let's let it share it out on here. So we'll be watching down here what's going on. It's going to take a minute or two. Does anybody have any questions as we're doing this?
None at the moment.
Wow. I expected there to be a whole lot of questions with this workshop. I guess I was wrong. Nobody had questions about arcade?
None.
So I used share a web map here instead of sharing a web layer. The difference is when I share the web map, it's going to share the entire configuration of this web map. And if I go back up here to my browser and go back up here to my contents for this, go back here to my contents, I will now see, I should now see a demo folder. In that demo folder, I have three things. I have my web map demo 1, which is the actual feature layer, which is being shared out. Again, that's that parcel layer. There is the service definition, which is the layer file for it. And then there is a web map, which is the map document containing it. So if I right click here and say open up a new file here, I can open this up in a web map. I don't want to, not right now. I want to do it here. All right, here's my parcels. Here's my imagery. If I do a pop-up on here, here is my pop-up configured as I set it up. Oh, look at this. Some of this did not come over. The system ID, shape area, that was in there, but it did come over with this expression on here. Let's go in and open this a little bit more. Come on. Come on, you can do this.
While you're doing this, we do have a question in the chat.
Yes.
If you would set bookmarks, would it keep those for the web map?
That's a good question. Why don't I do that? Why don't I do that? Let's go ahead and close this out. See that, Tamara? You should have asked this before. So let's go in here, back here, and let's go back to our map document and let's set a bookmark. Test 1. All right, let's set another bookmark over here. Here, set another one. Call this test 2. All right, let's save this. Move to another extent. Save this here. Let's go and share this out again and share this out again. Already exists, different names unique within here. Let's just go and save this out as a new one. Number 2. I'll take the time to put it up again. So in this case, I'm creating a new web map instead of using the old one.
Why didn't it ask if you wanted to overwrite it?
Because of the way I did the share. This was creating a new one. There's actually some new tools for sharing it and replacing a web layer and such, but this was creating a new web map is what it's doing.
I see.
All right, and let's refresh this. And here we see web map demo 2. Let's go ahead and open this here. We don't want to use the beta yet. All right, so let's see. Oh, look at this. We actually have 2 bookmarks here. Let's go to bookmark 1. And let's go to bookmark 2. There we go. So good question, Tamara. And you're right. If I set the bookmarks in Pro and share it out as a web map, it goes and creates that web map and actually goes and will display and store and keep those bookmarks for me as I'm going forward. All right, so let's look at what else didn't come through. If we click on our configuration, let's see, did it do the shape area? That area where I went and reconfigured that field to go and be displayed as a rate, that did not come through. It's showing me the object area, the system ID, these other fields in here. It did bring that expression through. So that did come through. I'm glad that came in, but it did not do anything with the chart at all on there. So to answer, and I forget whose it was, someone had a question earlier about why configure, oh, Kathy was asking me why configure it here instead of configuring it up there. All right, so let's go in here, and in order to configure it on the web browser up online, here's the type of things I have to do, because this is how it's configured in here. I have to click on this more options and go to the configure the pop-up option. And then I have, okay, what do I want this to be? I have to go to configure attributes and then tell it, maybe I don't want to display these things up here. Or if I do want to display this thing, I can tell it, all right, maybe I want to have 2 decimal places with a separator, but I cannot put anything in here. I also can't make this a rate on here. So I can't go in and do that calculations to display what's shown on here. All right, so I have to go and do my configuration that way. I do see that I have an expression here. So it did utilize my expressions when I brought over my pop-up on here for that. And it actually shows that I do have a chart here, but it's not showing and displaying for me yet, probably because I didn't configure it that well. So I hit OK, then I go in here, and now it's a little bit more reasonable. Again, if I want to go and configure this, go to configure the pop-up, again, go here, then go down to here and set the alias here. Square footage maybe, and do that, and then hit OK, and then go and do this. Yeah, I mean, you can do it up here on the browser, but it becomes a little bit more difficult. For example, changing symbology. Changing symbology here, you actually have to go and click on here and then tell it what type of symbology. Type of symbology, go to the symbols and then tell it whether or not you're changing the outline. In this case, we're going to change it to an orange outline. Set the transparency here if I want it to be somewhat transparent. Set the line width here on this also. So it's not impossible, but it's not as intuitive or not as easily as you can do it inside of ArcGIS Pro. Easier to do it with the more robust software than use something else. Okay, so let's go here. Let's go here to labels, because if you note, I'm actually now in, let's zoom in closer, and there's my labels as far as my symbology. So it did bring them over. It doesn't do a whole lot though. Let's try to manipulate our labels a little bit more. So we click on the ellipse here and go to manage labels. And this allows us to go and whether or not we turn our labels on, the size, the color, halo, and such, and where the visibility is. If we click here, we can get the expressions. In this case, this is the expression that we used. Well, let's try to go and put some things in here now. So let's put dashes in here, and let's go and add something here, and let's go and put the, so you saw I actually went and clicked on feature acres GIS, and let's round that. The value that's stored in that field to 2 decimal places. Let's test it and see. There's what it's going to look like. By the way, I really like this playground to allow you to go and test it. And now let's go in and put something here, and let's test it, and that's what it will show up as. Let's put a little space there. There's what the labels are going to be. Let's try that. There they are on here. But what happens when we want to try, instead of putting this dash here, if we want to try new line, says it's going to do this. Watch it, it's going to go in, but it's not doing it. According to Arcade, it should do that. Again, with Arcade, it looks like it's going to do right. But ArcGIS Online, the label manager, still doesn't quite know what to do with that. So I might go in and say, well, do it all in one line, but put a separator in there. And click OK. By the way, this element here, this is how you set the ranges of where it's actually going and being displayed. And they don't use scales here. They basically use levels for this. What level is this going to be displayed to? All right, so now that I actually have a web map, I got about 25 minutes left. Let's go and create a web app, something that we can share with somebody else. What we want to go and do on this, all right? Jose was asking, do you use the same arcade scripting on GIS Online, ArcGIS Online? Yes, it was exactly the same format of the scripting for there. The difference is some of the functions don't necessarily work yet on ArcGIS Online. Tori says, what would prevent publishing a map? There's a couple things. It could be the features, the feature classes that you want to go and create a feature service from might be different projections. It might be that you may not have all of the layers that are required, excuse me, all the attribute fields that are required to be turned on. For example, if you've got, Tori, I know you're specifically working with parcel fabric. With parcel fabric, because it thinks that when you publish a parcel fabric layer up there, it knows it's a parcel fabric, and you have to make sure that your global IDs are turned on. There's a couple things in there. I actually, if I'll show you later that, maybe I will, maybe in office hours, I'll show you that there are ways to go and publish a layer out of the parcel fabric and have it available. You just have to make sure you set it up correctly when you're going and pushing it up there. So there's a couple things. Why aren't you talking and asking me? All right, so I'm going to go and save this web map up here. Let's go and create and share this, okay? And let's create a web app. All right, this web app is going to give us the ability to go and interact with it and give it some functionality. So I'm going to go to the web app builder, and I'm going to do this real simple demo web app. All right, just demo, share it the same way. and say, let's go ahead and get started. And what this is going to do, it automatically has loaded that web map. Again, the feature service and the service definition are the layer and the layer file. The web map is the map document. The web app is the application. This is ArcMap that we're going to be designing right now, but we're going to tell it what functionality to give it when we do that. All right. So little things, for example, what are we going to use for here? Maybe we want to go and use a shared, let's do a customized one. Let's upload a file. Panda logos. Let's go and put that up there as our logo. What are we going to call this? Test demo is going to be the application. Workshop is the attribution on here. We can add a link over here, so when we click on this, it brings us over somewhere else. That's all right. Keep the current extent of the layers when leaving it. That's fine. So let's go back to the map. Let's go back to the theme. We have a whole series of themes. By default, we can go and put in here. We can do things like change the color of this up here. Make it, let's do a blue. All right, and what the layout is, in this case, all of our widgets are along the top and over here, or when I click here, suddenly these widgets go down to the bottom, or the find is over here. Again, there's all sorts of little things you can do on here. Let's use this one here. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go and add functionality to it. What do we want to do with this? We already have by default turn the layers on and off, and turn the layers on and off and give us our legend list. All right, that's what these are. Well, now we go and add new functionality, and we can add them either to these 5 spaces here, or we can add them up on the top. Let's go and add one up on the top let's add one for a new base map. All right. Synchronize with the other base maps. We can tell it what custom configurations are. So now we also have a base map gallery up there for us. Now let's go and do a plus, and let's do a bookmark. We have some bookmarks here. Let's go and tell it and how we want to do it. Let's sort of do them as a list. And let's go and add the bookmarks to the widgets. I got to go and do that. We can create custom ones. Let's just leave it at this. So now we also have this bookmarks, so that we have 2 different bookmarks here that we can go and use. Again, we are developing our own application right now, or I can go back to the home here, and we are telling it what functionality we want to go and put into our app that we're developing. So that's all the ones I want to put here. Let's go in and put some down here. So let's go and put, let's see on here. Let's go and add, let's go and add a measurement one, where we can go and measure things, and we want to be able to measure acres and feet. All right. And we don't care about the operational layers. So now we can click on this and then be able to go and measure things off of here. All right, thank you, Chris. And one more thing here, let's go and add a draw on here, where you can go and draw these, and this is in degrees, minutes, and seconds. Let's go and take this one off. We can label this no operational. Distances are, let's just go and put this up at the top. Okay, and I'm getting close to finishing here. All right, let's go ahead and save this. Let's test it and launch it. So we're actually going and creating this test demo application. This allows us to go and look at the legend, allows us to go and turn layers on and off. And by the way, not only turn layers on and off, but if we click over here on the ellipse, and in fact, I guess I didn't enable that, did I? Allows us to change the bookmarks or change the base maps on here to whatever base maps we want to put in here. Allows us to have bookmarks in here. All right, allows us to go and measure things, allows us to go home, zoom in and out. So I'm going to go in here and in the chat window here to everyone, there is a link to this web app that I'm putting together. We just put together. You should all have access to it now. Go ahead and open it up and see what you think.
Frank, Tamara has a question.
Yes, Tamara.
When you overwrite your map in Pro, will the changes automatically show in the final web application you're doing now?
So you want to be careful because you really don't want to overwrite your map as much as just sort of to go back to here. You really don't want to update or overwrite your map as much as you want to go and overwrite the data. And I'm just realizing I might be misunderstanding what you're saying. So if I do an update on here, I can overwrite my existing layer, my web layer, and update that web layer if I want to. Let me go back here again. If you overwrite your map, will the changes automatically show up in the final web app? Yes. So if I go back here to this and I go to my web map here, excuse me, when I go back to my web map here, let's open this up in a new layer here. When I open this, do something as simple as, hey, let's change the color here. And let's make it a green. Oh, excuse me, not the fill. We want to make that a green on here. Make it a green, and then go ahead and save this. Notice when I go here and go to my demo, it automatically is changed. When I change the web map, it automatically changes in the application, including things such as the symbology on it, where things are located, and such. So yes, that's a good question, Tamara. Thank you for that. You can. I see Jose's got a question. If you're updating your points on a web map, which feeds the web app, and all of a sudden the web app, some functions quit working, what would be at the problem? Boy, maybe the web map layers got corrupted, or maybe the web layer attribution could be. Yeah, the apps themselves are really dependent on making sure that the web map is correct and that the feature service feeding that web map is correct. If you're dealing with issues there, the first thing I would do is go back to the web map, make sure that's working, and then resave that. And if your features from your feature service are not displaying correctly, I would then go back and look at the feature service to see whether somehow that got corrupted. But if your web map is working correctly, you should be able to go back to the map and say, this is the map I want to use that's in here. make sure I use that web map when I'm going to go and do this. So let's go and display this again just to show you that it did update as we went in here. Yeah. So yeah, it should go and work. Sorry, Tamara, that was what you were. Yeah. The web app is doing nothing more than, and again, I'll go back to using ArcMap terminology. ArcMap is doing nothing more than opening up that map document, and that map document and what it displays is dependent upon the quality of the actual feature class. If your data is good, it should work in the web map, and if the web map looks good, it should open up well inside the web app on here. Tamara also asks, can this web app be opened in collector or field apps? I think it should be able to, because it's just a normal type of web app here. I don't know. There are some interesting limitations on what the web apps are actually, the field apps are actually looking for. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I can't guarantee it one way or the other for you. All right. All right, we're coming close. Do we have any other questions? What other things do we have that we can talk about here? Hopefully that kind of helped you to understand the most efficient way is set it up in Pro, right? Configure it in Pro, recognizing you want to configure your base map, your symbology, your labeling, what fields are shown, what calculations might be done on it, that sort of thing, and then publish it out as a web map. And once you have it as a web map, then you can bring it into as a web map, you can bring it into a web app, configure that and share that out with it. It's gotten easier and easier and easier. By the way, the one thing I'm not crazy about is this is actually the attribute. And on here, notice it took my aliases in here, took all that. So it handled that well. I just filters on here and such. It's a little bit, I wish it were easier, hiding and showing columns in here. I just find it pretty cumbersome to work with. I was doing that for a couple of years. I just have come to the realization it's easier just to do it in Pro, and then the way they've now have it that you can go and share out a web map, do it that way and set it up for you. It's so much easier to do. Thank you. All right.
Cheryl has a question in the chat.
Yep.
She says, I have a filter widget on my map and it seems to disappear when I change the theme. How can I prevent this?
The theme. It depends on it, and again, I'm just sort of grasping here, thinking what could be wrong. Some of these themes, as you switch themes, so for example, if I go to the box theme, notice my widgets that were assigned to these areas down here, they're gone because the box theme doesn't have those types of widgets in here. So it's dependent upon whether or not it's got the same widgets in the individual themes. Some of the themes have extra widgets, some of the themes do not. So it does come down to what the individual themes have as far as whether they have the spaces and whether they're referencing them in the same way. It's a different framework that you're dealing with. So there is no guarantee it's going to flip between themes. Biggest suggestion, if you have a theme you like, build it for that theme. Make sure you have the widgets in there correctly. Jose also had a question. What happened? I was updating every month the CARES Act web app, but then I believe it was provided with a table in the field, some field change, spelling, etc. I geocode points and share the layer and publish the web map, and my web map quit working. I'm sorry. I'm not even sure. I'm not I'm not familiar with that. So I would be purely guessing and not even speculating, just guessing. I don't know what could be doing on there. Um, it is literally like another app that you're running. So you want to make sure that everything's working there correctly as you go. One more thing I do want to say, the accessibility is dependent upon the accessibility that is set both here in the field layer, in the web map, and the app itself. All right, they are all dependent upon one another. So if you have a layer that you don't share, and then you include it in a web map, and you try to give that web map to somebody that it's not being shared with, they won't be able to see that anymore. Jose is asking if a field name changes, it might affect the layer. Let's try this. All right, so if I go in here and, well, let's go all the way down here. Let's go all the way to here. Here's a feature layer. All right. So the feature layer, this allows me to go and look at my data, look at my actual fields in my data. And while I cannot change the actual, maybe I can. If I save that out, that's actually saving the name. It's not changing that. So let me go in here, on here, old data type has changed the name on it. Let's go here and let's look at the attribute here, old parcel. And then this still looks valid. Let's make sure. Parcel type, no, that still looks like it's valid. I don't know. And I don't, Jose, I'm not quite sure that would do anything, only because if you actually look at this, back to here, actually back to here, if you actually look at this layer right here, it actually doesn't care about the field names themselves. It's actually referencing out a layer here. It's actually referencing out a rest point location. Here it is for that actual data. It's not relying so much upon those old names as positions inside the web services. So it might have changed in Pro before I shared the layer. Yeah, again, I would be speculating. I'm not comfortable doing that. Not comfortable. All right. Hopefully everybody got something out of there. Let me go and stop the recording, and we'll move into office hours, and we can open up open discussion there that won't be on the recording anymore.
Thanks for attending, and we hope you enjoyed this workshop. If you have questions, would like some more details about anything we discussed during this workshop, or if you or anyone at your organization would like information about training, support, or ways in which we can help you with your GIS needs, please contact me at frank@pandaconsulting.com or call me at 561-691-3277, and we can discuss how we can help you with your needs.